And we're live, just like that. How's it going, man?
It's going all right.
You know what's funny is that I was just kind of skipping through here, and I saw that you have a car all taken apart. What is that? A Toyota, Honda, Nissan?
Oh yeah, I was getting ready to post that on my community tab.
Oh,
Friend of
and
mine.
I think we.
Oh, I've done the echo. Hold on. We're fixed now.
Okay.
Yeah, I had my browser. So what happened was I got an email for the link to this live, and I clicked. And I said, "Wow, where's Professor P?" Because it was 3 minutes to showtime. And what I realized I did was is he reposts that same link on a reply, and I had gotten one of the older ones. I looked up in the
Oh.
corners. Oh, that mystery is solved. So I just scrolled to the top, and I popped in here like 10 seconds to go.
That's awesome. So, what car? What kind of car is that thing you're working on?
Yeah, it's a Honda Civic, and a friend of
Oh,
mine's had it about 10 years, and he hydroplaned with it and spun it backward into a guardrail a couple weeks ago, and it did a lot of damage. It actually moved the frame rail over a few inches and munched what would be the floor extension on most cars. It's actually one big piece on this, and it's structural. And anyway, we had to cut all that apart and weld a new quarter in and do a lot of creative fitting. But I'll put some pictures of it on my community tab. But I've been doing that for 3 days. 3 days with a grinder will really wear on you.
yeah. I was looking at some of the pictures, and I was like, that looks like it's been a few days of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
All right, so let's go down. We got Dan first, Slant Daily Garage second. One Eyed Cat, he says, don't matter. Toad Rod's just because. John Wilburn is third? Question mark.
I think.
Mr. Rodder's neighborhood is in the house. That's Mr. Dallas Brown, and he's fourth. Twisted Mopar Garage here. Frank's here. Oh, the wifey's here. Patrick is here. Bill, Jackie, 38, OS Racing, Lout, Dan, and mostly all parts and rust. So we're all here. We're all here in attendance. And while everybody's kind of shuffling in, I put that Edelbrock VRS on a slant six, man.
I saw the picture and it looks really wild sitting on there.
Dude, I got to tell you, okay, maybe it's just because I'm used to the fuel injection as far as the throttle body style fuel injection. I haven't gone multi-port yet, but it's just the throttle body.
Right.
When I put that thing on there and I started it up, that video that I posted, that was a real reaction. That was my very first start. I was like, you know what? Let's just give it to him in the raw form. I was going to cut it up and make it look all bitchy, but I was like, you know what? Let's just make this happen. And then the only thing that did trick me is those I do have kill switches, right? And I forgot to trip the kill switch because I was going live and I didn't want to see anything, so I had to kill it, bring it back on. And then in that midst of doing that, I forgot to hook up the return spring. And I started it. It goes to 3,000 RPM. I hook up the return spring, and the thing is idling, like literally idling out of the box. I didn't touch anything. Well, I did change the linkage, so that way it was about like it's just over a third of a throttle. It's probably just before half throttles when the secondary start to open, and then the idle air bleeds were a turn and a half, and I put them at a turn out. And man, does it it's incredible. Now I hooked up the wideband. Now I started it, didn't look at anything. I drove it up and down the street. That's the first video. The second video that's going to be going up, I drove it again today. I took it down to the car show. In fact, we just got back from the car show that they have down here in Colleyville every second Wednesday. I fired the thing up and I guessed a turn. It's actually 3/4 turn. It idles right at about 13.8 and it drives down the road just fine. Now, when I start to get into the throttle, it's a little fat here and there. It's about 10. It's not crazy, but that's going to come with tuning. But literally, I'm able to drive it around. I had the whole family in the car, and we drove it to the car show and back with just turning a couple little screws. Oh, and I adjusted the idle screw. I turned it a quarter of a turn to bring the idle down slightly. That's all I've done to it so far, out of the box. Amazing.
I heard about this because you were describing this to me at PRI, how all the circuits talk to each other
Yeah.
and how you'd gone from one extreme to another, setting it on different engines. And then you said you thought about doing this with the six. I'm like, yeah, that would make a real extreme. Set it
Yeah.
from those two you're talking about to this one. So far that thing's batting 1,000 on trying it
Yeah,
on different combinations.
and are you familiar with how an Edelbrock, style, just like an AVS style carburetor works?
Yeah, that was the first 4 barrel conversion I did, was one of those.
Okay, so when you have a power circuit, it uses springs, right? So they pop up for like when you're kind of like power, they pop up on the spring, and then as vacuum increases, they go down,
Right.
and it gives you better mileage. So even with my 600, and I've got this thing tuned into the max, there's a lag between, say you're cruising, you give it throttle and it shifts. Say you're under throttle, it shifts, those things pop back up, and then there's a lag time when it comes back down. So when you shift, sometimes it goes a little lean, then it comes back, right? Not with this carburetor, and it's a positive shift. What I mean by that is that now the slant six, now on a V8 you're not going to notice so much, because the slant six, you're just pulling a very little air. It's only 200 and I think 30 cubic inches, I think is what it is after you bore it. When it shifts, it doesn't, there's no shift in the air fuel mixture. So it shifts because it has those two intermediate circuits that are constantly talking to each other. It doesn't have these big wild spikes of like going rich or going lean, like when it shifts it goes bing. No, it's just perfect, and it's pretty amazing, man. And so I'm gonna have to take some big jets out of it. It does have power valve front and rear on that. What I'm probably gonna do is take out the power valve in the back. It just doesn't need it, because the only time I'm ever going to be full throttle on this is when it's full throttle. So there's really no point in me having a power valve back there. I'll put a power valve in the front, but I'm going to make it a very small one, like a 2.5. So it's going to run basically on the jet with the power valve essentially closed, and then very rarely is that thing going to pop open and give it the extra fuel. So, but I'm only going to make one change at a time, and as I tune it, I'm going to record every step of the way. But it's a pretty amazing carburetor, man. I'm actually really stoked. And when I went to the car show, once again, you've got Roadrunners out there, you've got Gassers, and you've got all these really nice cars. Here comes a 4-door 69 Dodge Dart with dents in it.
Right.
Paint's fading. It is what it is. 5 people in it, listening to I think we're listening to 3 Days Grace, and we pull in. I popped the hood. I took the air cleaner off. And there was more people around that car talking about that carburetor than the rest of the cars there. So
Oh yeah.
it was actually
Now, how many people there? Okay, so the first they're shocked to see the carburetor because they're not expecting it.
Yes.
Okay, well that's a given. But how many of them there said, "How is that not too big?" I'm sure that was the comment.
Every single one of them. Every single one of them, because it's a pretty, it's bigger than a Holly, but not as big as a Dominator. It's kind of in between the two as far as how the bowl looks and everything. So when you're looking at it onto a slant six, it's rather large. It's essentially 4 of the cylinders long, as far as what it looks like. So it's rather large, and they're like, "How is that thing good?" I'm like, dude, it's the pinnacle of all carburetor technology right now, on the least technical engine on planet Earth, a slant six.
Yeah, I like that. I learned a lot about carburetors from Andy Wood. Not saying I know anything about carburetors, but Andy Wood knows a lot about carburetors. And just hanging around with him, because I was at his dyno session for Mixed Up Boss, and it's so interesting when you're listening to these people like you who know a lot about carburetors and how it works. And he said that he used to get that comment a lot running a tunnel ram on a 393-inch engine. Actually, he ran a tunnel ram on a 302 before that, with 2 4-barrels. And people said, "How can you run that much carb?" And he said, the carburetors don't dictate how much air the engine's running. The engine dictates how much air the engine is running. You're just managing the fuel. And you really think about it, that's the name of the game. And he was telling me the big thing with Hollies is trying to bridge that gap, trying to go across from idle, to your jets. He said, because it's just drowning in fuel, because these engines don't need that much, and how he would jet it and drill it and all that. And then you're telling me how the next evolution in that is that carburetor that you're talking about, with how the circuits are talking to each other. And so this is now becoming a new evolution of what people have been trying to work around with the Hollies for years. I just find that interesting.
Yeah, and one of the beautiful things about it too that I've actually started that I was actually kind of playing with a little bit is when you have on like a standard Holly for like racing, you got a big camshaft with a big overlap. You would open up the idle circuit so that way it can idle at like say 1500 RPM or so. And what you would do on these is you would drill a hole in the butterfly to kind of help that,
Right.
right? Because
Right.
if you crack it too much, you're past the transfer slot and the things, and then it's kind of
Exactly.
like off that. Well, this one actually has that built into the body, so it actually has a bypass on it. So
That's the coolest thing.
it is the coolest thing. So like when I noticed that it was running a little fat, I started to play with that a little bit, so that way I can get a little bit more air bleed because it was running just a little bit of fuel, and it cured that problem, and it just idles beautifully now. So
I got to say that looking at the cutaways of one at PRI, so there's a display, so
yep,
there's all these cutaway pictures, and I looked at that, and again, I'm a consumer, but I am interested in the science, and I looked at it and I said, whoever did this has done a lot of Holly tuning, and they had their wish list in their head when they made it.
yes.
That's just exactly what that looks like to me.
Exactly. It's everything that you would want to do to a carburetor,
Yeah.
and a little bit more. And so it's an amazing thing. In fact, I'm going to drive it to work tomorrow, and then the real tuning actually starts on it, I think, this weekend. So, all right, Michael Schmidt's asking, Tech, how do you measure vacuum to determine what power valve to use? Okay, that is a pretty simple one. Get yourself a vacuum gauge, have the thing running at idle-ish, find out what kind of vacuum you're running. So, like, let's just say, for instance, you're running, let's say, 14 inches of vacuum at idle. So you would want to start right at about a 7.5 or even a 6.5 on your power valve. Usually cut it in half. Now, that's not the be all end all. That's just a starting point. That's just to kind of get you close. Obviously, you're going to have to kind of play with it to go there, but that's usually how to get there. Now, but that's on a V8 or something that's pulling a lot of vacuum or creating a lot of air. See, on a slant 6 or anything that's a smaller cubic inch with a bigger carb, you're going to want to lower that number significantly so that way you can kind of, because you're going to be kind of getting into the throttle quite a bit, and then because it's such a big carburetor, you're going to create a very low vacuum under the carburetor, so it's going to want to get into that secondary even though you don't need it.
Right.
And that's what I was having with the Edelbrock. I was having the yellow springs on it. I don't remember the inch on those, but it's a lower number. I can't remember top of my head. So that's how I do that with the power valve. That's, like I said, the starting point. Any advice on how to fine tune the intermediate circuit? Yes. Basically, you're looking at when it's shifting, like I was just talking about earlier. So now a lot of intermediate circuits are like when you have how can I explain this? If you have a trans brake and you're launching off the trans brake and you're and the car is coming up and going out and it's on the converter, it's not necessarily always on, or like also too when you're foot braking it. Let's just say when you're foot braking it, and say you're kind of on a pump shot, but yet it's not way up on the stall. It's kind of in between. That's your intermediate circuit. Also, when it's shifting, that's where you're really going to be on the intermediate circuit. Like say on a 3/4 throttle, half throttle. You will see if it's running lean. You can tell that by seat of the pants, because when you shift and it kind of stumbles and it comes back, that's running lean. It does kind of the same feeling, but you'll see the puff of smoke out the back if it's running rich. But a good wideband will basically tell you that. You can really see that. It's pretty evident.
This is a pretty astute audience, and viewers here, but I will say a lot of people don't frame correctly, when those circuits are in play when the car's
Yeah.
driving. Like a lot of engines make so much power, it's amazing how little throttle that you use for everything.
Yes.
And so it'll just dump fuel through that intermediate circuit into the engine when you don't want it to. It can.
Yeah. David James is saying, so it sounds like a VRS carb and carb cheater better than fuel injection. Okay. The carb cheater is a whole different deal. That is an active system that is going to have, like, say, an IAC valve that runs off of a MAP system that goes under the carb. This doesn't have that. What I was talking about is it's a manual adjustment. So let's just say let's just take my race engine. That's on my car. I had, keyword is had, a quick fuel. I'm going to have one of these new VRSs on it. And I have holes drilled into my butterflies because it's got a big cam and it's 270, 282. It's actually 272, 282 on a 108 lobe separation angle on a 408 cubic inch engine. So it doesn't want to really idle below 1200 RPM. And even at 1200, it sounds like it's at like 400. But I have to crank up the front and the back idle circuits so much just to keep it running. It's past the transfer slot. So I started drilling little holes in there so that way it'd stay on the transfer slot, so that way it would help out. Well, what this can do is in the side, you can adjust that so that's basically like an air bypass, but it's a manual one. It's not something that's going to be done automatically. So it's something you would have to adjust. So that's what it is. But as far as better than fuel injection, on my car, light years better, because the fuel injection worked well. It didn't work great. It worked good. It just didn't work great. The 600 and this carburetor work better than the fuel injection. In fact, I'm going to start calling him Muscle Car Solutions now. His new name is Wilson. That's what his name is. So we're going to start teaming up on some stuff. But do you remember Home Improvement? You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Tim the Toolman Taylor? Okay.
Oh, yes.
Remember his neighbor that you never saw? Right? That he's going to be Wilson. He's going to be the guy that you're only going to see the hands and like not the face. So from now on, his name is Wilson. So yeah, he lives close-ish to me, and so we're going to start teaming up on some stuff and going to the track and getting this thing dialed in. So
now, what was with the to back up on the fuel injection?
Sure.
You said it was good, but it was not great. What would
Yes.
be the couple of things that would keep it from being great?
Steady flow rate. Because it's an injector, it's pulsing fuel.
Right.
I tried injectors, cross injecting. I did this and did that. I've tried everything. I tried the fronts. I tried the rears. I tried to change all the injectors. Because it's such a long runners at the very end, short runners in the middle, and because of how low vacuum it really is, there was parts of fuel that just wasn't being distributed. Now, if I had a ton of heat going to the bottom of the intake, maybe it would run a little better, but I put very small injectors in there. I think I had 32-pound injectors in there, and I had it all the way down to 42 pounds of pressure, and it still was a little much at some points. It just couldn't. On a bigger engine, you're going to have less swings on the air fuel table. Also, too, this was a non-programmable computer, so the computer, all the tables were designed for a much bigger cubic inch engine. Even though I could bring it down to the cubic inches I had, I could change the pounds. The table just wasn't there. The table's more set up for like your van, right? Mm-hmm. A big cubic inch engine that's pulling a ton of vacuum. So if it's not changing the air fuel table very fast, your engine would eat it up. Where a small engine like mine is just not going to do that, and it would make wild swings in it, and it was hard for it to control. So
okay,
yeah, let's move on down here. 64 good puddling. Here, does VRS use emulsion tubes inside of it at all? It's got an emulsion tube that goes basically, it's like a transfer tube that goes, God, I don't want to say it. Imagine a Holley, but imagine a quick fuel and how that works as far as the, just imagine how that works. This is basically the same type of deal, except for the actual plate. I'm trying to think of the name of it right now off the top of my head, but the block, the fuel block, right? It's got just a lot more holes in it. Just imagine that.
You talking about the metering block?
Metering block. That's the word I couldn't think of. Yeah. Okay, right here. So he's basically saying, this is Wilson. He's saying the air bleeds emulsion tubes don't need to be touched on a street car. Our drag racing, and if you're data logging, you'll know what circuit and how much to give it. Anyways, yes. So you're not really going to touch this because those are all set up from the factory, and when they come out. Now you can change, like he's saying, you can change all this stuff, but there's so much adjustability on this carburetor that it really doesn't need to be changed. And to prove it, the setup that's in that carburetor right now that's on my Slant 6 is the same setup that was on that drag engine in the dyno, the same setup that went straight onto the Suburban. It's the same setup, not the exact same carburetor, but the exact same setup. That was the final test before it went into before it started to go into production. But this is the same setup, so it works. It works well.
Have you seen it used in dual quad applications?
I plead the fifth.
Okay.
Plead the fifth.
Okay. All right. Because I haven't yet. I probably would have remembered it if I had.
Yeah. Okay, and so he's basically now, if you guys want to know more about this carburetor, go to Muscle Car Solutions. He's got a great video. My last video, I linked it there, but I think it's the Edelbrock VRS 4150. I think is the first look on it. He basically did, I think it's almost a 30 or 40-minute video where he just he crawls all over this thing and takes it apart and explains every single circuit. I didn't want to go into that with mine video since it's already been done. I just wanted to go into being the guy that goes, hey, let's take it out and put it on a car. Let's see if it runs. That's kind of how I wanted to approach it. And the only thing that does suck is I did see a lot of the testing on it, so I know how a lot of the testing was done. But I'm going to approach this video sequence as just a guy that's only going to be looking at his wideband, and I'm using the fast wideband that goes to your phone. And that way I'm only going to do one change at a time. I can already tell you, in my head, I know exactly what it needs, I believe, and I could make pretty much most of the changes right off the bat. But I'm going to do it slowly so that way you guys can see it, how to tune this one step at a time. So it's more fun to watch.
I really like that over 100 years into the carburetor, we're still seeing where it shines and we're still seeing that kind of innovation.
Yes. Yeah. Now Clint,
it's a good question.
He hooked me up with a did you hear about that? He got me this Offenhauser intake for a Slant 6.
Oh no, not yet. No.
It's got a dual single barrel carburetor setup on it. And what it is that one carburetor runs these three and then one carburetor runs these three. I think I might even put that, if the wifey I ever rebuild her engine, I'm going to put one of those on there. But yes, the dual carb manifold does solve some of that. The only thing that you do lose though on that is some of the heat riser. It does heat the manifold on that, but it's going to heat in the center where that transfer tube goes over. So, but once these things get up to temp, it really, especially if you're running like the Dultra duals, it's going to come up to temp. It only takes a minute or two, and it's good to go. The Motion Jets, Slant 6. Here we go. Michael Schmidt, Slant 6 fuel injection. I think multiple injectors with multiple throttle plates is what would work the best. Actually, I'm going to go to. I have an intake manifold that Gill Welding, Gill Welding. They put bungs in it for me, and it's going to be a multi-port, and I'm just going to run a 4-barrel throttle blade on it, but I'm going to make that a super progressive setup. So it's going to go almost a 3/4 throttle before the secondaries open up, and that one's going to inject literally on the back of the intake valve. And I think that would be the best personally for Slant 6. That way you can get rid of some of the unequal distribution. With the throttle body, I did have to change the spark plugs like 5 or 6 times because I wiped them out a few times, and I had to change the oil 3 times because I put a lot of fuel in it. So let's see, moving on down. A lot of questions about the VRS. Yes, Michael Schmidt, VRS. How does it differ in technology than old school 4150? Imagine, how can I say? Imagine one is a Jeep in World War II. It got the job done, and it was awesome.
Right.
This one is your Humvee. It does the exact same thing. It gets 4 or 5 passengers from point A to point B. They can carry a 50 cal gun. They can do everything. One just does it light years better. That's really the difference. And if you want to know the difference, like I said, go to Muscle Car Solutions. And if you would, Wilson, Mr. Wilson there, Muscle Car Solutions, post a link so that way people can get it. Post a link to that video if you would. Put it up there because that way they can kind of see exactly how that everything that goes on that carb.
I will say last year when I first saw one of those, my very first just reaction to it is, hey, look, it looks like a Holley. And because a lot of people will do a copy of something and make no improvements. We're kind of used to that as consumers in general. But then I started looking at it and realized this is a different animal altogether. This is a really evolved design. So for people that want to say like Holly Brock and things like that, no, it's not. This is a pretty advanced design. I'm interested to work with one.
Imagine the most highest end race car carburetor on the market. Add every feature that you can imagine. Put it all onto one carburetor. Make it at an affordable price that you don't really have to touch much on. But if you know what you're doing, you can really dial this thing in. That is this carburetor.
Yeah.
And Mr. Wilson says Slant 6 with this carb and no tuning yet is ridiculous. Says a lot about the carb in the Slant. Yeah. Now the Slant will eat up some. I mean, you can throw whatever you want at it. I mean, it is the engine that they would dump sand on late night video when they were trying to sell that Slickum 50. Remember that? They would drain the oil, they drain the coolant, throw sand in it. But yes, it does say a lot about the carb. And if I didn't feel comfortable about it, I popped all my kids in it. We drove across town, and it's it's 110 degrees out today. With the heat index type thing, so it's warm. And it still runs just fine. I missed one right here. I grew up lots
I
of
love that comment.
Lots of carb tunability. In fact, Webers were my I'm a Volkswagen. That was my very first thing was Volkswagens. And so the very first thing is I had on there is I put the dual 40s on there. And that was, man, I love the Weber carbs because I had the velocity stacks on it, so I could change my emulsion tube. I can pull it right out. I could change the jet on the end of it, drop that thing right back in there at the track, and I could change them individually, man. You could just look at your spark plug and tell that. Oh, yeah. I love those things.
If you like tuning, Weber is a carburetor for you. It's like it's kind of like the gunsmith likes the one with all the parts he can polish and tune and all this. Okay, the Weber is that carburetor. Okay, 100%. It's the one, it's you do all that stuff with it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing too about this carburetor is that imagine if you like messing with carburetors, you'll love this carb because you can do that. But we give you a sheet on how it's set up, so if you miss the mark, you can go right back to stock, and you already know it's going to work bitching, and then start over again. Wilson saying that's not even in the same ballpark. Lots of articles on the VRS featuring everything Holley should have been. Yes, I agree with that.
It's an evolution. I mean, I don't fault Holley for anything. They contributed a lot to this art, but that is a step of evolution.
Yeah,
VRS is more than you might think in a passing glance. That's for sure.
Yeah. Let's see here. He's not a mod, Shane. Right. He can't post links. Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that. I'm sorry. I'm still new to this lie. I just get up here and I'm a talking head. This guy right here, Mr. John Wilburn, on the other hand, he knows how to do this stuff. Fun. Yeah. He's the one that actually helped me get this going. So, get all this stuff going. So, Mr. Schmidt, cool. Thanks, Muscle. I've been a 4150 guy with boats since 1995 with a small BM blower. Works good, just not very efficient. I will check Mr. Wilson's links. Thanks for sharing. Well, you know what?
That's a great efficiency is a great question too. So what kind of experience do you have with the efficiency on the
as far as miles per gallon?
Mileage, yeah.
No, I don't know anything about it right now because most of it was just checked with calibration and power. But this is exactly what I'm going to be doing with this carburetor on my engine because remember, the goal is 30 miles per gallon, 70 to 80 miles per hour, and I can drive it anywhere I want to go. That's the whole point of my Slant 6 car.
I'm
So
betting that circuitry is going to deliver mileage. I can already see
exactly.
it because it's not going to be drowning it with fuel when you don't want it to be. And so I
Yep.
think that not only is it going to be better drivability, I think it's going to pick the mileage up. But I don't know. I would be curious to mess with one. They looked
I'm actually
really
going to
neat.
see if I can get muscle car. I'm going to see if I can get Muscle Car Solutions. If I can get his link here, and I'll see if I can try to.
Yeah, post it up.
Yes, Muscle Car Solutions. To see if I can pull it up here. I don't want to kill too much time with this, but I would like to
Oh,
put it
that's
up
good.
here because he had it up here for his main carburetor link for a while.
Muscle Car Solutions. Yes, a transmission swap will deliver a line share mileage. That's true, but there's no replacement for the optimum tuning. You know that. So
Yeah, here. I'm going to see if this goes in here. Does that go?
yep.
Okay. So there's your link. That's the link that goes to the Edelbrock VRS 450. That's the blow through carb applications. And let's see here. He did have another one on here. This is the link for the first time it was revealed. Here we go. And that's the reason why I didn't want to do anything about I didn't want to step on his toes with that because man, he's got it covered. I wanted to go into just putting it on there and making it run. Okay, let's see here. I know I'm a little behind. I'll get caught up. Bicycle Guy 11. Hey guys, any advice on utilizing shop space? I'm rewiring a 3-car garage for multiple 240 volts for a welder, 60 compressor. Next is air piping, thin copper with PEX. Any options on that? Okay. As far as the 240, I would definitely run at least one underneath the box and at least one on the other side of the shop somewhere. Wherever you're going to, I would lay out the shop where you're going to have your dirty area, where you're going to have your engine building area, where you're going to have your welding area, where you're going to put your lift. That's the first thing I would do is just kind of lay it out on a 2D thing as far as paper. And then as far as a 60-gallon compressor, if you don't have an extra room, build a room outside and put it in there because when a compressor comes on, oh man, it sucks. I built one. Mine's got in a hallway and I got a little thing around it, and it's nice that way. I can hear it coming on, but it's not scaring me. As far as piping and all that, what I do is to keep some of the moisture down is where it comes out of the compressor. I run 200 foot of line wrapped up, and then it comes out of that, and then I go through 2 different catch containers, and then because I don't want to. I like just being able to tear it out and throw it away. I run just regular air hose from one link to all my pull downs. So that way when it blows, I can just turn that valve off, change the line, and put it back up. Now, I know that you can do air piping, but sometimes, even though I want an air hose there, I might want to move it or something. And when you do the hard line, it's such a pain in the ass to change anything because now it's set in stone. That's the only reason why I like the rubber hose. And as far as outlets, I would run at least a 2-gang box. So that we have 4 plugs, and I would run at least a dedicated circuit to the workbench area. So that way you have a dedicated 20. And I would only run a 15 amp circuit only to the lighting circuit. Everything else would be 20 amp. That's just me and how I would
I
do
will
it.
say, and it's not necessarily mentioned here or implied, but have those outlets on all of your walls because it's really easy to get a trip hazard of cords going everywhere. I have that in my garage and I hate it because if I want to run a battery charger to one side and the outlets are not convenient, I would have one going across and I shouldn't. And so if I were to do that, if I were to redo that, I would probably think about where I'm all putting outlets now.
Yeah. Yeah, Michael Schmidt saying the 850 Holly 4150 double humper is like Eureka shop vac for fuel in a boat. Let's say it's not very green. Yeah, I mean that's going to happen, but you can adjust that. I mean, you can adjust the pump shot. You can adjust the amount of cc's. They have 50 and 30 cc's. Plus, then they have different thicknesses of squirter. So there's about 3 different ways you can adjust that pump shot, so that way you don't not using all that fuel. I'm going to have to do that on mine because I did floor it today, and I got the quadribog sound.
Oh,
But whoa! But if you watch the video, you'll see how much fuel comes out of those pump shots. So it's significant. And on that little tiny cubic inch engine I've got, it was just too much. It was just too much. Dust Devil Garage, when I build my new engine, I'm thinking about 2 VRS carbs on a tunnel ram. What are your thoughts on having them tested, them in a dual quad configuration? We'll talk about this a little bit more offline. How about that?
he got here right after.
Yeah. See here. I bet the VRS on the carb cheater would both be awesome paired with a progression ignition digital distributor system. Yeah. Here's the thing, though, is I don't know if you would need a carb cheater per se with this carburetor. That's what I'm trying to get at, is because the cheater is for a carburetor that didn't have as much adjustability. Back in the old times, you had a carburetor that basically was an idle circuit, a pump shot, which was kind of like your intermediate, let's transfer to the jets, some sort of economizer, which would be like some sort of vacuum assisted metering, and that's it. And then you're obviously wide open circuit. This one actually has 2 intermediate circuits, a low and a high, plus it's got a power valve. So you have 3 different types of economizers on here that you can adjust. So I'm thinking if I can get the pump shot under control for this engine, it might do better. It might do better than that 600 I had on this thing. Let's see. 30-day POS racing. My compressor is 50 foot away in a different building, buried 3/4 inch iron line in the shop with another 60-gallon tank. Yeah, that's smart, because I got to tell you, until I have a 3-piston, I think it's a 100-gallon tank. I think is what I got, a big tank on it. Mine was, I got this one out of a place that did body work. So it's a big enough one I could paint a car. So it's a 3-piston pump. It's 220, and I think it's a 40 amp electric motor on there. And so it's significantly more powerful than I could ever use. But it was one of those deals that it was purchased brand new. They put it in, the company went bankrupt, and then it was an auction thing, and I got it for like $200, and that's like a $4,000 compressor. So I couldn't complain.
So let me ask something about that.
Sure.
There is this quick lube place that's in the next town over. I don't mean, that's not a brand or anything. I'm just using that generically.
Yep.
And I have a friend who has a business rebuilding air, electric, and hydraulic tools.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that the tools that came from this place were always full of water.
Mm-hmm.
His compressor was in a building that was way on the other side of the parking lot, and the piping ran underground from it, under the parking lot, into the shop. I've never seen so much water as they were getting in their air lines.
Yes.
What can they do to fix? Now, the noise wasn't even a thing. The guys that worked there said you never heard the compressor because it was on the opposite of the parking lot, his own building. But what can they do to get the water out, or why is it so bad?
Why it's so bad is because he has that big long line buried underground. So that air, my compressor puts out so much heat, it could run almost like a steam train as far as the air coming into that. I mean, it's that bad. And that's why I did 100 foot, but then you got to get that water out. So that's why I have the catch tank. So basically I have a dryer, but it's a big one. It's a big dryer, and you have to have that if you have any length of line or anything that goes underground. So I actually have to pause for a second here, and I'm going to just say something. This right here, Mr. Michael Schmidt, you are my very first ever super chat.
Right.
And I was waiting for this. So Mr. Michael Schmidt, send me slantdailygarage@yahoo.com, your address and your t-shirt size. I'm going to send you a t-shirt. So this is my very first super chat on Slant Daily Garage. I'll send you a t-shirt. I'll send you a little goodie bag, and so thank you for that. I appreciate it. So thank you. Oh yeah, and I've never done this before, but someone else will do it for me. I can't read it because I'm never ever going to ask for anything like that.
So Wilson says, "Don't forget to hit the like button."
Yes, Mr. Wilson. Mr. Wilson. Did I miss anyone when I was going down here? Because I kind of stepped over a few of them.
It's funny you say that you don't ask for, like, you know what? I've never asked for subscribers,
Yeah.
and it's ironic because look how many people I've worked actively to help get subscribers.
Yeah.
Probably cumulatively as many as I have if you added them all together.
Yeah.
It's just we just have what we do, and that's,
Yeah.
I respect that but people like what you do. So
Yeah, and that's the whole thing too, is that, I was talking to the wife about this, as far as me going and doing this, and I don't, there's things that I know that if I can help people with this, I mean,
Yeah.
why not? This knowledge, these videos are going to be here on YouTube, and if someone can go back 10 years from now, let's just say they
Right.
ban all cars, and then there's this apocalypse, and then for whatever reason, these videos aren't here, and all of YouTube, they'll know how to go and do a carburetor or do this or do that, or they can go through this, and then it could be the one guy who's been stuck on his question forever, like, man, why is this not working? And then he comes across one of these things, and then he's like, hey, and he puts it in the chat, and we're able to help him out. I'm cool with that. I think that's awesome.
I think once YouTube is a couple of generations old, people will start appreciating the stuff that we're doing now and the stuff that's been done already more than they already do. Because they think of YouTube as a very current product, but I think that these videos, a lot of them are going to age really well.
Yeah. He's asking, do you think 1.6 rockers will make a worthwhile difference with factory max wedge 520 lift cam and heads? Here's the thing. A stock Mopar rocker arm is not a 1.5. It's not even close. I've seen them down to 138. I've seen them at 1.4 something. In most rocker arms that you buy are going to be a 1.62 or 1.63. The reason why they do that is because of deflection, and there's a whole different thing going into this, but they'll actually make it slightly bigger than that. That's why you always have to check piston valve clearance if you're getting close when you're just doing a theoretical with rockers. As far as making a worthwhile difference, they always will. But you have to measure your gain for how much is it going to cost. Most rockers, most people who are going to go to 1.6s already, are going to be factory stock and then going to 1.6s. If you already got 1.5s and you're going to a 1.6 rocker, then you're really kind of splitting hairs, because as far as camshaft goes, I think it's half a degree. So you're not really going to gain much. Where you're going to gain it is just in the velocity, where, like, say the 300 mark and the 400 mark, you're going to have a little bit more air into the curve, so it would be like just a slightly higher velocity camshaft opening and closing. And where you're really going to see the difference, and the most important event on a camshaft, is intake closing. The intake closing timing in event. That's the number one. It's debatable, but that is the most number one for power wise. Okay. So when you have a 1.6 rocker, you're gonna delay that just ever so slightly. Plus, after it goes across bottom dead center and that actual piston's on its way up, it's going to be at a much higher lift at that point, as far as it's going to be holding it open longer with a bigger lift. So you're going to be at a higher CFM. Whether that or not that's measurable and what you're going to see on that, I mean, there's plenty of videos on YouTube where you can go and see how much a rocker arm is actually worth. But I've always said, if you can do it, make sure that, first off, call the manufacturer on your camshaft, because I've designed a lot of cams and a lot of profiles. Some are so fast already. We call them spicy. They're already spicy. It is. Once you put a 1.6 rocker arm on it, you're actually getting that velocity so high when it's opening and the closing event. The spring pressures that you currently have might not be able to control it, because then you're getting outside the harmonics of what that spring is capable of. So I would say yes and no at the exact same time. So that's the reason why I made a big long answer for that, is because yes and no, it really comes down to cost for what you're going to gain on it.
One follow-up I have to that, our friend Just Mopar Joe, he did a comparison, actually measuring lift at the valve with two brands of 1.6 or whatever they were. They were the same ratio, same advertised ratio rocker 30 thousandths difference.
Yeah.
Peak lift between the two. So that's very significant. I mean, typically when people have catalog cams sized that way, that's about the size difference between two cams is what they got in peak lift differences with two different brands of rockers that are theoretically the same ratio.
Yeah, but honestly, at peak lift, that's not where you're going to notice the power gain. That's why I never really look at that. It's really going to be, it's not just the peak, because the peak is so tiny of an event. It's the curve on before and after, because it's going to hold it there longer. That's where you're going to gain it, and it's really going to be on the back side that you're going to gain it, per se.
But if you took, say, 5 different brands of rockers, I wonder what ratio all 5 of them would measure.
They'd all be wildly different. Every single one of them.
Right.
Yeah. Because some people, like I said, I do know a Crowler and Comp, both over slightly ratio them slightly, because, you also have to take into account when your push rod is at an angle. This is a theoretical straight push, straight in line, everything, perfect, lined up. The second you start putting anything in a 3 to 4 3-degree cant, when you exaggerate it more and you go higher lifts, you're going to have more, how much it wouldn't actually match up. So when you could do the cosine of whatever the angle is, and then the lift at the valve, and that will tell you how much you're actually going to lose on the top end, and then you can figure it out from there with the rocker arm ratio what that would actually be as far as the difference. So it takes a little math. It's something I learned quite a bit when I was doing Mopars, because they got 11 degrees, off on that. Okay, Mr. Couchy, reason I asked about the fuel pump, ours did, and we removed it because it was dead, but now we can get fuel up and run through a quadrajet, pull in one gear. Did I miss a question? Oh, right up here. Hey Shane, so I dissed the mod to the advanced plate on the distributor. Wow, does the truck hit harder? Quick question, did the 4-bill on the 80s D150 come with an assist electric fuel pump? I don't think so. What year's your
Is it a late 80s?
It just says 80s. I don't remember.
Are you talking about a late 80s that has fuel injection?
No, it's a 4-barrel. On your van, your van's what, 85? 85. You have no electric pump. It's mechanical. Yeah, so I don't think there's anything on those. I don't think anything Mopar had. I think the very end.
I can't think of anything like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, Danny Boyd, I went from 1.6 to 1.7 on my Fox 5.0, and it made a nice difference at wide open power and exhaust tone. Yes, you're definitely going to hear it, and whatnot. If someone gives me a lobe lift, I'll show you how to do the math on it. It's really simple, how the difference would be. Or you could just do it at valve. So, here, I got a new phone today. Do you know that? I got a new phone.
Look at that.
Yeah. And what's cool about it too is all the buttons are in the exact same spot, so that way I don't have to relearn anything. So I'm actually
now when you were phone shopping, did you try spinning it around to see if you could screen share with it? And did you do all that?
I did that because I wanted to go full John Wilburn. I wanted to make sure it could go full John Wilburn. Okay, so here's some quick math. So if you have there you go, see that. So whatever your lift is, 603 divided by 1.6, and that gives you your lobe lift, theoretical, right? So 402. Right. Then you could take that 402, times it by the new rocker arm. So you take your 402 right there, 402, times that by 1.6, and now you have 643. So you went from so you basically 402. So your lift was 60. Do that right there, right? 603, and then I went to 643. So there's about 40 thousandths right there, just in a 0.5 rocker arm ratio. So that's why when he said that he went up a full point on it on a Mopar and it went up 30 thousandths, because he's gained an extra 10 thousandths more in deflection now. So and that also too is where your cup seat sits on your cup. If you screw it all the way up to where it bottoms out and you're within one turn, so that push rod is closer to the center line, or this would be the law of cosines, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole with you. So it's the law of cosines now, but the farther it goes down, the more lift you're going to lose because you're pushing it the wrong direction. So you want to keep it closer to the center line on that. So
and not to plug him necessarily, but Joe, when he did his rocker arm comparison, he also did a push rod length comparison, which illustrates this exact phenomenon. And a lot of people in the comments did not understand that. He was not saying that push rod length is a tuning feature, but he was showing how it does affect the lift.
It does, because it depends on where the cup is at inside the rocker. It has nothing to do with the length of the push rod. And that's a big thing too. Jonathan Couchy, we have 1.6 rocker on Junkyard 360 with the Hughes Whiplash cam. It's pretty radical and it pulls hard with 294 gears. Yeah, this was basically my setup for years. I would go down and get a Junkyard 360 out of a Cordoba, look for brass freeze plugs. I've said this 100 times. We changed the cam. I had a bitchin' head setup we'd put on there and open up the ring gap and spray it till she blows. That was fun. Let's see, we're getting down. I got a lot of questions today. This is awesome. Keep them coming, guys. It's an 86 D150. Okay. It had a quadrojet. Well, it's technically a thermal quad, but yeah, quadrojet from the factory. It had a factory anti-vapor lock kit installed, and we're thinking it had 8 PSI electric pump in the tank from factory to assist the mechanical. It very well might have if it had dual tanks. I think that was a thing if they had dual tanks, didn't they?
I don't know. I mean, I've seen a lot of trucks with dual tanks with that, but they were all fuel injected. So
yeah, I don't know on this one. You know, I had an 87 Dodge Prospector with a 440 in it, and that was a D150, and I put a 440 in it. And it didn't have anything in the tank. It just had a fuel sock on it. And what a lot of people do is they'll put a pump on the side so they don't have to drop the tank and clean the sock out. They just put a pump on the side just to overcome that. So very well could have. I don't know them all.
If you guys in the comments have heard of this, let us know. I think it's interesting.
Or if you don't really want to check it out, just go. If I go to Rock Auto, I'll look up that year, go to truck, and then just go to fuel pump, and they'll say if it says in tank, then yes, it did come in there.
You know, I kind of do that with a junkyard website. It's car-part.com, and what it is, it's like the national locator, a public version of that. And I can look for parts all over the country, different yards, but the system knows what came in what. It's kind of useful.
Oh, that's cool. Clayton's Toolbox asking any helmet suggestions. I have a Race Quip open face helmet. That is giant. It makes me look like Great Gazoon from the Flintstones. There's something smaller that complies with the rules.
The rules for what?
Yeah, because what speed? Slower than 10-0s or faster than 10-0s? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have a Race Quip on mine, and I've got a full face one. It just is what it is, you know.
I can speak only for the one event that I do know, which is the No Name Nationals. And per the AHRA rules for that event, if you're running 764 or quicker, you have to have a Snell helmet 2015 or newer. Mm-hmm. And if you're running 765 or slower, you can run a Snell 2015 and newer, or you can run a DOT, like a motorcycle helmet.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So when you say rules, it all depends what if you tell us what you're running, we might have a better idea.
Yeah, give us a time, and then that way we can kind of know on that one.
Yeah.
Buick Smith, question. On your mileage Lizard build, to get max mileage in the engine, is it better to run at your cruising speed at max torque RPM or at the lowest RPM needed for any grade on your route? Okay. For what I've noticed with the Slant 6 is the closer I'm running to peak torque, because peak torque means efficiency. That's where the carb is basically making the most efficient power and the most amount. I run just slightly under that for me. And the reason for that is because I'm trying, well, that's my goal. Right now I'm actually on the other side of it because Peak torque on mine happens at about 22 to 2500. That's the top of the parabolic. I'm right now at about 2750 right now at about 77 miles an hour. I do know that when I get to 80 miles an hour, fuel mileage does go away significantly because I get into that point where it's just turning enough RPMs to where the vacuums, it's just pulling too much fuel and too much, airflow. And I know that's a very small amount, but it does make a difference. Also, too, the coefficient of drag on that car and the cross-sectional area, it might as well be a brick. It literally is a brick looking at it, And after 60, I'd say more like 67 is when I can actually start to feel the drag just from the wind on the car. And that goes up exponentially. Once I get up to about 75, that's where you start to notice that, wow, I have to give it significantly more throttle to go 2 miles an hour faster. So hopefully we're going to find out more of this when I get my A500 done. I'm almost done with it, and I'm going to put that in the Lizard King. Hopefully I'll have that in and done by the No Name Nationals. So that way the wife's going to drive the Lizard King up there, and I'm going to take the Cookie Monster up in the trailer. And the people who I beat last year, bring it on in the Lizard King, because I'm going to have some more stuff. I'm going to have some more stuff. So, and
Look out.
I'm not going to hide anything. I'm going to put 355 gears in the Lizard King. So that way, when it's at, I think it's an 067 or is it 068 from the A500 overdrive. I can't remember off the top of my head.
I was thinking it was 069.
Maybe 069. Okay, it's
Anyway,
one of those.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah, it's good. And so with 355, my tire size, lock up in overdrive, put me at about 2300 RPM to 2250 in that range. That's exactly where I want to be. And then with the low ratio first and second with 355 gear, plus I have a super short tire in the back. I have a 23-inch diameter tire. So it's going to get out of its own way. That's the whole idea. So, Jonathan Kelchi. So I figured out optimum cross-sectional for peak power on a 3.6 Pentastar is 2.5 inches. I'm planning on swapping a 2015 Durango intake because it flows more. Problem is throttle body is moved. Yes, you know what? I actually have a friend. He's got a Dart that's got a Pentastar 3.6 in it, and with a 5-speed. And he's doing the same thing right now, and I can't remember which intake I think it's called a Pug intake. I think it's called a Pug is what it is. But yeah, it works awesome. So
Professor P, you're working on an A500 for your Dart.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Remember I made that adapter plate?
Right. I know you made the adapter plate. So after the No Name Nationals, I'm going to be building this later A500.
Nice.
And you'll see that on the channel. We're going to be doing some neat stuff there, and it's going to have what I hope to be a first, something I've never seen anybody else do with one. You'll have to wait to see.
That's awesome.
Somebody to rip it off in the meantime.
What year did you go with on the A500?
This is a later one. It's about a 94 model.
Okay, that's
so you'll be seeing it. It will have it will not be electronic though. It'll be a hydraulic valve body.
Now, isn't 90, now maybe I got the years wrong, but isn't 93, 94, 95, that's just the 3 plug, right? Or the 4 prong? It's
I can't remember, but this will have a hydraulic valve body. It'll be moved. You'll see.
That's awesome. I'm stoked for that.
It will not be electronic.
Good. Yeah, mine just has solenoids on it. So there's 3 years where they fixed all the problems with it. It had the better clutches.
95 was a disaster year for that, I think.
Yeah.
What years were the ones that had the disastrous solenoid deal for Chrysler?
Yeah, I don't remember, but I got the year that they didn't. It was there's 3 years that were the best ones before they went to the electronic one.
Yes.
It was and I got one of the 3 years that I did. I can't remember the top of my head.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Couchy says, anyways, I'm going to port the intake on the 3.5 Pentastar to a 2.5 cross section and port. Oh, we got that one. Okay. Let's see what Patrick's got. Have you seen Moosey's petty small block sale at Carlisle? No, Did you go to Carlisle? Carlisle?
No, I did not get to Carlisle this year.
Huh.
I did not get. Maybe next year. I did last year. We'll see. We'll see what it holds.
Ooh. Lout Burns is saying mostly old parts and rust. You should see it now. Gen 3 Hemi is in and running. Awesome. Nothing
Exciting.
like the new Power did. I love those things. Okay, move on to this one. Oh man, I'm not a fan of the Gen 3 Hemi in the old stuff. I really like the small block going 160 plus during the one lap of America. It was. He had a car that was doing 160 miles an hour. Wow. And I just heard this today. Just so everyone knows, Atco Raceway, New Jersey, is now closed forever. This has caught a lot of people out surprised. Dude, it was a complete shock to me. I saw that and I was just like, whoa. Like,
I'll tell you, English Town, Atco, who would have ever thought 10 years ago that a facility like, Atlanta Dragway there in Commerce, I mean, look at that state-of-the-art place, a record-setting track, and it just got encroached on. So no track is safe. Support your local racetracks. Your track can be next.
Yeah, even the one here in Memphis. That one went away.
Right.
Yeah.
No track is safe. Support your local racetracks.
Okay, looks like we kind of got all caught up on these. So what? Other than the secret mystery A500, what do you got going on what are you building right now?
Well, what I'm building right now. Well, okay, there's this, and I'll give a sneak peek of this. I'm the best picture of it here. I'm going to put this up on my community page for people who would like to analyze it and tell me how I'm not good at body work. They're welcome to do so. I don't care. But this Civic had that quarter panel munching. It wasn't just the skin. It was a lot of structural mess in there, but turned out really nicely. And that was a break from doing, let's see if I can get this picture. That was a break from doing, I've been working on so I had some plumbers, and I say plumbers in quotes. They did some work, and there was about 1 inch of floor joist left. So being the car guy and not having anywhere to put wood, I just decided to build a steel beam around it. Awesome. And this is still under construction, but I'll tell you, nobody's fallen through that floor in that house.
Yeah.
So that I've been building that, and the less house stuff I have to do, the more car stuff I get to do. So
yeah.
After the No Name Nationals, I'm going to do that transmission. I'm going to have some 727 stuff here on the channel here pretty soon too. So I got 2 transmissions to build this year, if nothing breaks.
Actually, we have a really good tech question here. Buke Smith, more mileage questions for best mileage, heavy or light flywheel on a manual, and how does the size of the lockup on an auto translate to a manual's flywheel?
That's a great question.
Yes, it doesn't, because you're at a steady state. It won't make any difference at all. When you're going down the road at a steady state and you're just cruising along on the road on a flat, it will not make any bit of difference because it's just going down the road. Now, when you're accelerating and doing all that, that's a whole different deal. But as far as for mileage, it won't make any difference. What's your take on that one?
The only thing that I've really ever studied when it comes to the heavy and the light flywheels is when guys with really underpowered engines would use them in drag racing to get that inertia to get off the line. And beyond that, I've never studied anything that they do. But I found that fascinating. There used to be a group of guys that run really small inch manual transmission cars, and some of them would run 50-pound flywheels just to have that inertia to come off the line. And something I never knew, a buddy of mine told me, he says, listen to them when they come out of the water, because you can tell they have that super heavy flywheel just the way the engine winds down.
Yeah, it comes down slowly.
Yeah, right, because of all the inertia.
Yeah.
So I've never studied them anything beyond that.
Yeah, as far as that goes, and people think, well, you're running like a 50-pound flywheel, that's going to kill the power. You're dealing with such a small power band once you're up on there, you're going to, like, say, let's just say they're shifting at $8,000. They're only dropping to 7,000, or maybe 68. They're only within 1,000 RPM as far as their power band. So it's really not going to make much on that end of it. And as far as for, like I was saying, with the lockup and the manual, when they're locked up, you're going to, as far as just now, where you're going to lose the power is just turning the gears. A manual, with the clutch out going down the road, a manual is always going to be, well, more than likely, mostly is more efficient going down the road, just because you got less turning parts you're turning. So than an automatic. But in an automatic, when you're in lockup, usually it's a direct drive. So you're just turning essentially a pump at that point, and that's the only extra thing that you're turning would be the pump. Here, John Wilburn, can you strengthen your squatted truck?
I hope not.
Yeah, right. Let's see. Did we go through?
If I'm driving a squatted truck, I'm hauling something really cool in the bed.
Yeah, right.
That's the only way you're going to get me in that.
Couchy's Austin. Hey, Shane, you would know, is there a factory EFI setup for one that of the big three that would be able to convert to run your Slant 6? We are trying to figure out what would do with my brother's truck. Yes. There's a guy, I actually haven't physically searched it, but I've heard rumors of it, where they did the throttle body off of like a GM. And it seemed to work fairly well. I believe those are lower pressure too, aren't they? Like, say, like 20-something pounds, 25 pounds. It's the lower type of throttle body. You could do something like that, but I got to tell you, if you're going to be running a throttle body type of injection, stay with the carburetor, because it's a steady state of fuel. If you're going to go with a EFI on a slant, make it a direct port injection. Just make it direct, multi-port. That's the way to do it, just because of the runner length. And it would just come out better with the carburetor. Unless you have like this infinitely tunable type of box, that's what I was going to do for my next step. But I just didn't like it because I can tune a carburetor. It makes a lot more sense to me. And Dallas is going to be getting my throttle body injection. He's going to put it on his, I believe it's his Suburban. And then that way you can see the difference between my car, which the tables aren't designed for, and a car like his where the tables are designed for it. So, and he's still trying to get mileage out of that thing too. So we'll see how it works and see how it goes.
That'll be an interesting comparison. As vastly different as they are in engine size and weight and everything.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, let him run it and let him go. I'm in the middle of some body work on my 05 Mustang GT, including pulling the radiator support with a come along.
Yep.
He means pulling it out, like bending it out. Yeah.
You can do good work that way if you're patient, take a lot of measurements. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Wheeler King 71. Flywheel weight actually can make a very minute difference in efficiency, especially in low RPM engines like diesels. Now, I could see that in diesel, yes. In a car, most cars are going to be running up where the red line of a diesel is. That's where the torque's going to be. So it can smooth out power pulses, increase efficiency.
That's
even
logical.
Yeah, in a steady RPM. 100%, yes, I agree. You're absolutely correct. But in a diesel, yes. In a car, gas-powered engine, you're going to be up 2,000 or 2,200 is where most of these are going to be, want to run at. At that point, you're really not going to notice it. At least that would just be my opinion on that.
Wheelie King is sharp on stuff like that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Danny Boyd, speaking of squad trucks, you ever see the meme of two obese chicks where they got to haul some ass? No, I haven't seen that one. I haven't seen that at all. Professor P, any VR testing with Boost yet? Plead the fifth.
That's a very Patrick-like question.
Yeah. I know exactly where he's going with that, and I can tell you offline we can talk a little bit more. I'm just kidding. I can't divulge any of that information. Really, I can't. I'm just playing with you. Yeah. It would be There's actually a link. I did put it up here. Let me see if I can go back to it real quick. Where Mr. Wilson, I'll put it up here. He kind of talks about this a little bit. And Patrick, watch that one. That one basically explains, the ins and outs, what you would need to do. I hope that link does work. Yeah, so.
One of the cool things about having Professor P here, this is not something you would hear him say, but I would say it. A lot of times we'll get things, and it could be electronics or anything. It doesn't have to be car related, and we'll look at it and say, well, who designed this? Well, what's different about this community is Professor P is actually in our community. And so we actually, well, oh, you are. So when he pleads the fifth, understand he's doing stuff for the hot rodder in himself and for all of us.
Yeah.
So it's good things. This is a good thing. He'll share what he can, and it'll be good.
Oh yeah, and when I share it, that means that it's been tested, tried, and true, and it's a fact. I don't want to think I come up here knowing everything. I don't. I really don't. I only know a very little bit about a very broad spectrum. But the things I do know a lot about, I do know a lot about it, and I like to give facts, undisputable truths on things that I know for myself as far as through my testing. And so when I plead the fifth on some things, there's a couple reasons. One, I just can't divulge it. Two, I'm either working on it, and three, I've done it, and I need a repeatable result before I say that yes, So that's basically the three different ones.
In general, I will defend YouTube channels that are doing experiments regardless of the results, because at least they're testing on somebody's dime except yours, right?
Yeah.
So in this case, Professor P is, not testing with your dime, but he's being reserved to give you good results and good info to share here, which I think is very respectable and cool.
And here's one thing too, is that it was a very big gamble, and this is a real deal. This is real speaking here. It was a very big gamble to put that carb on that slant six, and this is Edelbrock put a lot of time and money onto that, but I knew, looking at all the information that was done on and how that carb was tested, everything. Now there's always a reasonable thing of error, right? But mathematically, I looked at it, I'm like, this thing has a 95% chance of being able to put on there and run just fine. There's always anomalies. These are mechanical parts, and things happen. But I knew that it would go on there and it would run, because I've seen the wide variety of engines it was tested on and the results that were given. Now, I obviously went way outside. This is, outside the bell curve, and it still worked. How well it worked was actually a rather big shock for me. I was expecting it to run and like start up, make some engine noises, and convert some fuel into exhaust and call that good. Putting the car in gear and driving it around, that was not in the script, but I just went with it. I actually just kind of went for it. And me driving that car and those reactions, that was complete shock. Like I couldn't even speak. I was just like, man, this is gonna be a lame video because I'm not even having a chance to explain anything, and it's just like it's working, and I just was like, I'm just gonna keep driving. All right, let's see here. Moving on to Michael Schmidt is asking, Shane, does your company own Holley, B&M, Wind, Comp? It doesn't own Holley, B&M, Wind, but it does own Comp Cams. TCI, Russell, Powerhouse, Lunati, and I think that's, and obviously Edelbrock. And Edelbrock. The main one. I couldn't remember the main one. Yeah, and I work. I obviously do a lot of stuff, but I'm mostly in the transmission department of it, the TCI department. And but I do a lot of testing, since I do have a vast knowledge of engines and how they work and tuning on them. I do quite a bit help. We all help each other as far as engineers, and not just, hey, this is your project, good luck, you're on your own. No, no, we're definitely a very tight knit community as far as how we all work together. And every Friday we go to lunch, and we eat our lunches together, and we go over all of our stuff that we're talking about, and so that way we're basically getting a meeting every day about our projects, and we bounce ideas off of each other. You could be staring at a model and not see the thing staring right at you because you designed it and didn't see that little detail. So I think that with the daily things that we do with each other, plus we go out to lunch every Friday, we bounce everything off each other. So it's really good. So I know that was a diverge there, but it's a really tight knit community that we have. So it's awesome. Okay, Couchy, Shane, did you guys ever have a development for aftermarket parts for the 3.6 Pentastar, like scrap projects you can either confirm or deny? Now, I don't know anything about the company that I'm in currently right now. I can tell you that when I was at Crowler, I trained in Inertia Motorsports. They do a lot of Pentastar stuff. They do mostly the Gen 3 Hemi. They do some stuff on the Pentastar. I was making cams for them, and I do know that there was a time there that people were trying to make cams for these. Here's the problem with these, is that it's like a press-on lobe type deal. You ever seen one of those, John?
No.
Okay. It's
a press-on lobe?
Yeah. Imagine a stick, and then it's got teeth on it, and the lobe, the basically cam profile presses onto gears. Now, obviously, they put it on hot. This is cold. It goes together, heats up, and then it comes together. And then the lobe is basically, it's undercut. So instead of the lobe being a solid piece, it literally is undercut on some of these. And they're only hard on the surface. So now that's not all of them. Some of them are like this. There's a lot of other manufacturers that do this. It's to cut down on costs. Obviously, rotating mass, it makes it efficient. There's many different things. Plus, you can put different coatings on this to make them last longer, so on and so forth. The problem with these camshafts on these things is how it's a hydraulic roller, but it's kind of like a radius arm roller where the hydraulic is here. It's got a arm that comes off. It's got a big wheel that hits on the valve, so it's got a radius arm. So any time you change it, kind of like the old Honda series. Remember the old followers on those? Yeah. And the Ford Pinto. It works like that. So any little change in these makes a huge difference. Plus, there's not much room in that hydraulic lifter. Now, it's designed for factory, so when you recut it, you're going to move the pivot point up. So now you're going to be outside of the hydraulic lift of that. Now, if you're going to change any of the actual lift of the camshaft, the only way to do that is take it from the base circle, because you can increase metal, especially on something like this. And even if you change the duration, you gotta make this side bigger. The only way to do that is to take the top down, bring the bottom up, which makes it a smaller base circle. There you can create the lap. So now you have a lifter that's outside of its operating range, because now it's almost extended, which is not where you want a hydraulic lifter to be. You want to be a hydraulic lifter as far as a performance application. You want it as close to bottom as possible, so that way if it goes out of control, it doesn't pop out and make, bad noises. So, I did a lot on that one. I was working on those things, but as far as that goes, it's going to be probably not much. There might be someone out there. Professor P, you sent me a friend request on Facebook. Never messaged me. Are you creeping and keeping an eye on us? You sent me. I sent a message to everyone. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I just, you guys pop up on my phone. I don't creep anyone, but yeah, dude, you know what? For you, I am creeping on you. How about that? I'm a lurker. I'm around the corner doing the lurky, No, I like to go into other people's live chats, and I've noticed that a lot of the guys that are in the chat here have Facebook, pages for their Bad Tree Productions or whatever it may be. And so I always try to subscribe to them, so that way if you guys do go live, I can go to your live event and support you guys also. And then and just if there's a topic that I know something about, hey, I'll pop in. So why not?
And for those of you who haven't been following, there's some cool transmission stuff going on in the world of Bad Tree Productions. You're not going to want to miss. Um,
Oh,
yeah, interesting stuff.
awesome, awesome, awesome. There's one thing I did notice in the back there on the orange. It says a 6 and a 4. For you don't know, what's a 6 and a 4 mean? Real
It
quick.
is 63 days, 2 hours, and 40 and a half minutes until the second annual AHRA No Name Nationals.
Right? Man, I'm telling you, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Yep. I got my my Power Glide all bolted in, and I took it back out, and I'm just finagling things, and I built the mount for it, and then the Ford 9-inch will be here in about a week or so, and then we might make small block motor noises here pretty soon, and then I'll take it to the track, get it all everything kind of broke in, and then we're gonna put the juice on the damn thing. Let her go. Let her eat.
That's going to be exciting.
I'm excited. Me too. Mohawk 62, good stuff tonight. Thanks, John Shane. We have to get going later, everyone. All right, take it easy, man. Thanks for stopping by, and I hope that we answered your questions. We're entertaining for you good enough. So awesome. Well, thank you. All
Blake
right.
there says, yeah. Kim says, yeah, permission to talk on Facebook. Bad Tree Blake says there, interesting transmission is basically bad news. You're in the wrong search. But I know that good news is going to follow. Those guys actually, they're transmission people. They like to do transmissions and stuff. Some people don't. I don't know. It's a small minority of people actually like doing those things, but they
It's
do,
fun.
and they're good at it. So I know there's going to be some good stuff coming. So knowing that, I'm going ahead and plugging it in advance. So if you haven't caught the first part of the story, which starts with bad news, get caught up because the cool stuff is yet to come.
Okay. What kind of transmission is, you mind me asking?
But it's a 727,
Okay.
and what it will wind up being, who knows? But I want to follow and find out.
All right. Cool. That's. I just want to know what the base was, what the actual
Yeah,
body was.
this is in Blake's 68 Dart, big block Dart.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Awesome. Let's see here. Observation: bought a 21 Daughter a Jeep. It's a POS Chrysler's going electric using Fiat system. Who in the heck is going to fix all the modern Chryslers sold in the last 10 years?
Not
That's
me.
why I don't even want to mess with it.
Not me.
We bought this Dodge Journey. Man, I love that thing. It's like it's an SE version now, so it's the bottom of the barrel, but it does exactly everything that I want it to do. They're like, oh, it's antiquated. I know I've said this before. It's antiquated. That means it works. Leave it alone. And the transmission's got 4 speeds in it. I'm not trying to. It's a 4-cylinder family wagon. I don't care. It gets on the freeway. It does 80 miles an hour. Leave it alone.
I always get a chuckle when I hear somebody say, well, that system's been around for 70 years. Like they're trying to tell you how obsolete it is and you shouldn't use it. I hear exactly the opposite. This thing has auditioned for its job for 70 seasons and kept it.
That's right. There's a reason why on the SEs, when they do the fleet vehicles, they want low maintenance, low problems, less gadgets, get in, start up, and go. That's exactly what I wanted when I bought this car. This car was a fleet vehicle. It only had 12,000 miles on it when we bought it. And it was my very first time dealing with, like, say, CarMax or one of those online type of phone car people. And it was okay. I mean, it's definitely not for me because I know a thing or two about cars. That's designed for someone who just wants to go in there and goes, I need a car. Okay, thank you. And but other than that, they treated me good. It was okay. So, all right. My brother was replacing a transmission on an International Scout because it was bad. Car still ran and drove fine. He didn't realize until he put the new transmission in. It was the U joints. Oh yeah. Well,
Didn't happen. Wow, that had to hurt because you had to take the drive shaft out to change it.
Yeah, right. You should have seen it at that point.
It was begging you to diagnose it right that moment.
Yeah. Kim's fixed things. We got cam bearings for a 72 Valiant Slant 6 engine. Might also have installed the cam and crank and pistons that we have in Bell Campo's channel. Okay.
Right on.
I'm going to go down and I'm going to copy that real quick here. and I'm going to put that in there. I'm going to subscribe because I love watching other people's builds. I think it's awesome, man, because everybody sees something from a different angle, and not one person's the right way to do anything. You might just say, that's awesome. And when I do things, Buff Del Campo, I'm looking for it. When I do things, the only reason why I'm doing what I'm doing is because I'm trying to make it as cheap as possible. I don't want to put, I could buy the Wiseco pistons and these different ones that are much better and lighter and do all this stuff, but I can buy a set of Speed Pro pistons for like $50 for this thing. A set of rings is like 30. Bearings are like 50. You can get a rebuild kit for under $250, I believe is what it is for a Slant 6. So yeah. And at the time when I started on these things, I was in California and I was making all the money was going out and everything else but fun stuff. So that's why I got into it. Thanks, Kim. We bought two of the last cars Mopar built before they went bankrupt, 2009 Challengers. They were so much better than my 16 Ram. Yeah, I have an 04 Dodge diesel truck, and I was like everyone else. I'm just gonna trade this thing in and buy something new. I know. I put new suspension on it. I'm doing all the stuff. I put airbags on it. It just runs. I started looking at it. What if I had problems with that car? That truck. It had a starter. I put a starter in it. I put 4 water pumps, probably 9 different thermostats, 2 power steering pumps, and then 2 lift pumps that were on the engine, and then I got rid of them and I put the lift pump that goes on the frame rail. And I had a starter and probably about 5 different relays and a couple fuses. That's it. That's all that's ever gone wrong in that car since I've owned it brand new, 2004. You can't say that with anything else. Okay, Jonathan Calci. Nagua 5-speed was an option with the 3 Pentastar Chargers. The 8-speed was standard, so someone optioned it that way. Oh, okay. So he must be talking to someone else then. Sorry. If you can, man, that 8-speed's an awesome transmission. It's really awesome.
I keep hearing that, and
yeah,
I've actually looked a little bit at the power flow. You're talking about the 8-speed truck transmission that doesn't use any sprags or bands.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
It's
all clutch to clutch.
Yeah, exactly. It looks like an interesting power flow. I have a feeling if it could be packaged right, that's got some performance possibilities down the road.
Dude, we're in our Charger, when we were testing that bolt together converter that came out a couple years ago in my cooler kit, that's the transmission we're using, the ZF8 HP70. And we were at the track just beating on it. And that's in a Charger weighs 4,300 pounds, right? 6.4 headers, camshaft, your standard operating procedure, what people do, your standard muscle car type of thing one. And we did 400 100 lap, so 4 times. So basically did 400 laps at an 8th mile track. In one day, each time we did 100 passes in a row. We put 2,000 miles on this thing, and with this, and trying to beat on it. It's not like 2,000 miles. Let's get on the freeway and go like, no. This is to the floor, acceleration all the way up to freeway speed. You deaccelerate all the way back down to like say 10 or 20, and you go right back up to 70 miles an hour. Imagine doing that for 100 plus miles. That's how we're testing these things. That transmission just never skipped a beat. It's awesome.
The first gear in that, I believe the latest ones have a 525 first gear.
Yeah.
And 2 overdrives.
Yeah, and well, they need that because of how heavy that vehicle is.
Yeah, right. But just think about those numbers.
Yes.
Man.
But it's a really big tire. I mean, that thing's got like a 22-inch rim, so it's a very...
I don't know. I think it's wild. And from what I hear, I think Turbo Tom, I think has built one. He's in the chat here. He says they're not bad to build. He says they're not overly complex. So
no, I've built probably 5 now with those, and they're super. It's a stack. It's a stack type of transmission.
Is it
it's all components?
Just keep applying stuff. Okay.
Yep, and you have different clutches. Like you've got your E or D or F. I mean, there's a lot of clutches in that thing, clutch
Oh yeah, I
packs.
imagine.
And then there it's a three-stage solenoid. So you're basically releasing, applying, and that's how they do the torque management. So they all have an onboard computer, every single one of them, in the valve body. That's where the computer's at. And then it's just sending information to it, and then it's adjusting the torque accordingly. How fast does it apply and release? So one's applied, this one's released, and then what they do is this one starts to apply, this one senses it, they kind of do an overlap, and then they go together. And it makes it as seamless as possible. So that's how the computer, and then obviously on, off, when they're under power, this one is ever so slightly, as far as this one's on, sorry, this one comes off ever so much slightly faster, so that way they don't overlap. So it's just so it's like literally almost an instantaneous thing. So it's really fast, and the power band, it keeps it in that under 1,000 RPM power band, just boom, 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 and it's just, that's why they can get the times out of that big ass heavy vehicle that those things are.
Keep your transmission fluid clean in that thing.
Yes, absolutely. And the fluid in those things are not cheap. They are not. It's not like $30 a quart, I believe is what it is.
Oh.
Yeah, it's for the 8 and 9 speed. So yeah. I'm building a CRT trans to take down JMJ. What's the JMJ? I hate acronyms.
Mopar Joe.
Oh, but not really, because my big block, it's just as junk as the old trans. Okay.
So what I read in there is I'm building a Cope Racing transmission to take down just Mopar Joe, but not really, because my big block is just as junk as the old CRT trans, and I want to collect the bounty. Oh, wait a minute. That was just an invisible link.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. I was like, how did you get all that from that? I was like, man, I'm really tired today.
Blake is a good racer. Blake's a good racer. He likes to have a lot of fun on YouTube. Don't let him fool you. He's a seasoned bracket racer. So okay. If I had to pick a top 4 that could come out of nowhere and win that thing, Blake's on my short list.
Yeah. And, when we talked about the bounty on just Mopar Joe, I can't collect any of the bounty because I'm not going to be any of the bracket. I didn't know that Joe was going to be doing both races. I didn't know he was going to do the bracket and the 28 1050 class. I didn't know that. So the money that I put up for is just for the bracket, because I can't put money in a class that I'm in. That
right.
That's bad. Professor
P has ethics.
Oh yeah. The whole point of the bounty too is just to have fun.
It is. Everybody's having fun with it.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
I want to say hi to Andy Wood. Andy's in here from Michigan, so thanks for watching while you're sequestered at work.
Oh, what's going on, Andy? I was like, oh, wait a second. Yeah, he's here. Andy, did you or Dave figure out the Carter 2-barrel after the mods needed and jets or rods messed with? I'm not following. What was this? Oh, is this for the engine that's going to? Oh. Let's see here. Man, they're coming in fast.
Yeah.
Okay, so John Scalzi, my 2014 Charger really only gets 4% less than my dad's 2014 Ford Fusion. I get 30, he gets 36. In a front wheel application, the Pentastar was only 1 mile less than the 2.4 4-cylinder cars. Yes, in fact, the vehicle we bought is a 4-cylinder. It only gets like 25 miles to the gallon in it, but I didn't want the V6 in it because then you can't get the SE. Then the V6 at that point is like what they call the Crossroads, which is like their higher end, and it's got the big TV screen and all that crap. I didn't want all that stuff. I like the fact I get in the car and I start it up, and the only thing that lights up is a radio, and it's just a radio. That's it. I love that. To me, I don't like distractions. I enjoy the ride. That's the whole point. I don't own a vehicle with a screen in the dash, and I don't want one. No. That's why I hated, like, when we got that. Remember the Jeep that we had?
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, that to me was just a little bit much. Like I didn't like that, and it was a small screen, very small, but it was just enough to make me angry, and I would have to turn the screen off all the time.
Professor P was nice enough to chauffeur us around Indianapolis PRI week in the Jeep. We were rolling unmarked.
Yeah, right. And not only that too, but I had the most seats. Now, if we do PRI again this year, I've got 3 rows of possibilities of people now, so we can seat 7 comfortably. Imagine throw 7 deep in a no-name nationals type deal going to PRI. That would be it'd be awesome. LED light bulbs.
We're talking about screens. This is the screen in my uncle's truck. It gives me a headache. Look at that. That's a 2019 or 2020 Ram.
Yeah.
It gives me a headache. Anyway, sorry. I had to show that while we were on screens.
Yeah. Michael Smith actually asking a really good question. LED light bulbs on vintage cars, is it a thing to swap in incandescents to LEDs at this point in vintage cars? I am slow to do it, even though recog benefit. Okay, I did this in my Dart because I drive it a lot. And here's the thing: is go down and get yourself a Jeep Wrangler. I believe it's a Jeep Wrangler. They have round bulbs now that are a sealed. And they take like an H4 bulb or something like that, or 9003 or whatever it is. And Jeep people, they can't leave anything stock. They got to have their angry face on the grill, and they got to have their big light show of different things. So you can pick up those buckets for literally nothing. So what I did is I got 2 of them, and I think they were $25 for both of them. That's a pair. And then I put it on relays. If you go to my channel, I think it's under the Lizard King, you'll see that where I did the LED conversion on it. It makes a world of difference, especially out here in Tennessee, where I'm from San Diego, where there's street lights everywhere. Here, not so much. Once you get out of the city, there's really nothing, and you need something. And plus, with just the way the roads are here, you got to be able to see a couple, little hills up beyond to see if there's a car coming. So I think personally, it's a thing. It's better than like a candle in a bucket facing forward, which was what it was before.
So that's really valid, and I like bright lights because I like to be able to see and all that stuff. On the other hand, and I'll just make a weird counterpoint to this. Sure. I'm into old technology and stuff, and to me, I like to be able to see that filament. I like to be able to see it get brighter. That's part of the old car experience to me. That would be something that I would be very reluctant to change, because I think part of the soul of a classic car is that incandescent filament in the bulb.
Yes.
That's just me. You can do what you want.
Yeah. And that's
all different.
And that's valid. And that's exactly why on the wife's car, because my car, the Lizard King's kind of like the Slut. We do all the things to it and just change it around and whatnot. But here's a link. This is a link to the LED upgrade on my page that I did. You can look at it. It's a really simple deal, and it's awesome. And it basically spells out everything you need to know. And then as far as the bulbs themselves, I didn't get crazy on the bulbs. I bought bulbs that I can go to any O'Reilly's and get. I got the Salvanias because I can go anywhere and get it. You can get brighter ones. You can get this, you can get that. But this is the Salvanians with this bucket is about 100 times better than factory. So I'm good with that. And plus, Shane's getting up there in age, and so watching having a little brighter lights so I can fight back a little bit on these 2-lane roads does help out quite a bit.
Professor P's got 2 years on me, so he's got 2 years to scare me with something that may or may not come before I know whether or not he's telling me the truth.
One of them is what's hanging on my face and not on your face. I have glasses now. So.
Well, I didn't say I could see. It doesn't mean I can see, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, I tried to talk about. I tried to sharpen a drill bit the old school way on a grinder yesterday. I did pretty good, but it just, man, I'll tell you, it is harder to sharpen drill bit on a grinder than ever. So yeah.
I like these. Whenever I see any suggestions for cheap, I love that. Right off the bat, cheap. It's always good.
In this environment, cheap is good.
Yeah, you want to field this one? You want to give it a go?
Any suggestions for cheap, lightweight aftermarket wheels for the street? Old aluminum ETs and such for better unsprung weight and mileage. Will full moon caps fit on newer, larger wheels? Well, I don't know about the caps it'll fit on because you got to check all of them together. But what I'll say is make sure they're not cracked. Make sure your studs are long enough because most of the time when you're going from a stamped steel wheel, that's what is it, a little over about 125, a little thicker. And when you go to an aluminum, it's almost always an inch center. And so, like this stud right here, for example, it needs to be about 5/8 of an inch longer to properly fit a 1 inch aluminum hub wheel.
Yep.
This is out of a Chrysler factory disc brake right here, right? And that's what people neglect on the wheels. But as far as that go, hey man, um, pick whatever you want. I will say one thing that is beware of ones like the Krager SS because as cool and vintage as they look, those wheels are not light. You can have aluminum wheels that wind up weighing way more than your steel. And just so the Krager SS is a ridiculously heavy wheel. Keystone Classics are very heavy. Now they're cool. Don't get me wrong, but you got to do your homework a little bit when you talk about the weight of the wheels. And you might look dorky doing this, but who cares? This is your project. I have a little small scale that I use for weighing parts, and I mean that thing is not this thick, and it'll weigh a pretty good amount of weight. And I put that in my backpack at swap meets. So if you really want to know what a wheel weighs, or a brake drum, or anything, an axle, you can weigh it right on the spot like that.
Yep. Yeah. As far as better unsprung weight for weight and mileage, once you're cruising down the road at a steady state,
like the flywheel.
Yeah, like the flywheel, it's not really going to make much of a difference. Here's where you're going to notice is in the performance, the handling, and acceleration. That's where you're going to notice it. As far as mileage, that would be the acceleration rate. But then once again, you could just slow down slightly. And a lot of on these older cars is your right foot is the mileage thing. That's going to make the whole thing.
I went from a 4.5-inch wheel to a 6-inch wheel on a car one time. So 50% wider wheel. Mileage didn't change at not even 1/10 of a mile per gallon over numerous tests. I was surprised.
Yeah. I've done this. I tried this too. I put aluminum wheels on the Dart, and it didn't make a lick of difference. Literally exactly to the 1/10 of a mile per gallon over. This was in California.
On the drag strip, though.
The different thing. Yes.
Difference.
Yes. 100% different. But on the car, no. I did notice it though. There was a lot of potholes. It just ran better with a lighter wheel. Obviously unsprung weight, but as far as mileage, I didn't notice a lick of difference in there. In fact, nothing at all. All right. Cricketers. Here's Smith. Dallas gave me some good info on spare wheels for a 90s Ford Link. Has aluminum spare wheels that look like Steelies, cheap and lightweight, and they look good. The R skis in front. Yes. What was that last week or 2 weeks ago? I don't know, but he did one about these. And yeah, so you can go down and get the Lincoln Continentals, and it goes right on, and it's badass.
Yeah. Say a quick hello to Dizzy Izzy. I saw him sneak in here.
Oh, Mr. Dizzy Izzy. Oh, good evening. Oh, here he is. Hey, how's it going? Oh, and it's back. Good evening, John Shane, and hi everyone. How's it going? All right, Clayton. So I have an AEM air fuel ratio. How accurate are they? I think my wide open is perfect, but the gauge is showing mid 12s. That's actually perfect if it's wide open throttle. Yeah. So it really comes down to if you have any leaks in the system. Most widebands are going to be accurate. All the gauge that you're reading is just the signal coming from the wideband. And there's a couple different widebands, but send me if you send to Slant Daily Garage at Yahoo, send me which one you're running and send a picture of the wideband and the plug, and I'll tell you exactly what wideband that is.
That reminds me, it might be a good thing for you to touch on. It shows how much cars have changed over time, the labels under the hood for the consumers who bought the cars.
Mhm.
My 70 Dart has a label on the driver's inner fender that actually says that the optimum air fuel ratio is 14.4 to 1.
Mhm.
Now, you think about that. Would you ever see that on a label for a car made today? But that's besides the point. It might be worth mentioning where that air fuel ratio should be under different circumstances,
Yes.
because that's a very broad statement. I know when I
Mhm.
went to Virginia Tech, we talked about stoichiometry and your air fuel
Yep.
ratios, and what those often neglect when they're talked about in a vacuum, so to speak, not figuratively. When you don't have any engine to apply to it, any load or anything like that, those numbers, those theoretical numbers, change. So tell people, see, what he's mentioning here is his wide open in the mid 12s. What should that vary throughout the range?
There's a massive. In fact, we were talking about this I think last week about ported versus manifold and
Right.
what is rich and what is lean. We got to put a number on this. So, in a carbureted car,
I think Tanner's right.
15.5 to 16.0 is that would be considered lean, but that's your cruising state. As far as a carbureted car, anything under, now this is just naturally aspirated. I would say anything in the tens that would be considered rich. So there's your range. So um, I like to be when I'm making power now. Different bore, stroke, rod ratios, all this plays into account here. Air temperature, manifold temperature, so on and so forth. But typically, you're going to want to be between the 12.5 and 13.0, and that would be on the power band. Some like now. Let's make it a little more broad. Let's call it 12.2 because some engines are like them a little fatter. My Slant 6 likes it just a little fatter the most, and the reason for that is because it's got nearly a 7-inch rod in it, a huge long stroke, super small bore, so it wants that. And also too, a little bit more fuel gives a better cooling effect in the chamber. Whole different thing topic also, but that's where you'd want to be when I'm idling on my Slant, and it's different than my V8s that I drive. The Slant wants to be in the 13.7, 13.5 when it's idling. Anything leaner than that, and it starts misfiring because it's got a very inefficient head. So it needs that extra fuel in there so that way the chain reaction can start. Now, we can also play with timing and other things, but most V8s are going to want to be in the high 13s. It's called low 14s. That's going to be a power type thing. And when you're cruising down the road, you're going to want to be above 14.7, I would say. So I cruise my Slant when I had the Edelbrock 600 on it would be about 15 and 14.7. So 14.7 to 15.0, and when I had my V8 I was in that same range, and that's going to give you your best. But that's where you're going to want to kind of be. So power 12.5 is kind of lean. 12 I'm sorry, not lean, but rich, 12.2. So 12, let's call it 12.5 to 13.0 power. That's going to be a safe, but no, not 13.1, but 13.0. That's only and obviously the leaner, your timing has to be accurate. Idle, obviously somewhere right in that might be 13, and then cruise 14.7 and higher. That's what I would say. So, but once again, all engines are different. Stroke, efficiency of head, the efficiency of the combustion chamber really dictates a lot of this too, in the compression ratio and the camshaft overlap. There's so much that goes involved in this. All right, moving on. Michael Schmidt, I am using AM widebands to tune dual carbs on a flathead Plymouth. They utilize common Bosch O2 sensors and work excellent. I really like them. Yes, exactly. Now there are two different versions of that Bosch O2. As far as the cycling rate on them, your standard standard O2 is going to be just fine for what we're doing because anything is better than nothing. So just just get them out there. The one that I'm using uses the brand new O2s that cycle now. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, so I'm not even going to attempt it. But it's like a 4.9. I think I'll attempt it. I think it's 4.9. It cycles extremely fast, so it's almost like live time instead of kind of ticking like this. It's moving really fast. So yeah, works out good. David James, can you fix an AFR at X pipe and exhaust to go both side medium on Rich Celine. Okay, can you install AFR at X pipe in exhaust to go both sides for medium on Richard Lane? Okay, that's a little far back there. I would personally like to be where they come together on your header. You'd want to be within about, I think it's 7 or 8 inches of where they merge together. That would be the best, where you're getting the most amount of heat. Nothing is, and also too, water. You want these things to come up temperature when you start it up. The O2 sensor is going to come up to temperature from the electricity inside the actual plug, but then it's going to need heat from the engine to keep it clean. The farther back you are, the more moisture you're going to have in your pipe, and it's going to take longer for that thing. So they don't last nearly as long the farther downstream you go. So you want it up near as close as possible. All right. Right. This is actually true. Colleen, old
Yes.
manuals used to tell you how to lash valves. Today's manual tell not to drink the battery acid. Isn't that the truth? I mean, they should just keep taking the warning labels off and let just everything settle itself out,
I'm waiting to see a warning label on the back of a sun visor that says cruise control does not mean you can take a nap. I mean,
Right?
we're about to that point now with passengers in the driver's seat.
Yeah. Oh, Michael Schmidt sent me a thing. He says, okay, so he gave me his thing there, and he sent me some pictures of his. Oh, he's got a 51 Plymouth flathead, dual carbs, headers,
Ooh.
exhaust. He took a picture of it. Oh, it looks good.
Like it.
Yeah. Here, I'm gonna see if I can go John Wilburn here. I'll take a picture of my screen here. You like that, man? I'm telling you, that's
Yes.
a good one, man. I like that. All right, let's get a cancel. Let's get a picture of this, and that way I can show you guys. Let's turn this around here. We're getting close to the end here, so we can kind of let it go off the
Well, the
rails.
time has flown, so
It has.
yeah.
It has, and I was
Been a
actually
great
getting an
evening.
alert. All right, let's see if I can. Here, all right, let's go, John Wilburn, right there. Look at that thing.
Well, look at that.
Yeah, it's pretty badass. I
I
like
like
that.
it. That's cool. What transmission are you running there? Let us know.
I think. Did he say it?
I don't know.
I thought he said it was a manual, wasn't it?
Okay,
I don't know.
that's
But
cool.
I'm assuming that's probably one of those 3 on the tree type deals.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I like the bolt action.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
First
they said
responder.
3
How
on the tree.
efficient? What's that?
He says say 3 on the tree.
Oh, it does 3 on tree. Oh, yeah, because that was common for the Plymouth back then. How efficient the combination will determine on the AFR, because 12.5 on the gauge is not what the carb or EFI is doing. It's reading how much it burns. AFR entering is not what is being burnt. That is correct. All you're seeing is just how efficiently it's burning what's left over. It's only counting hydrocarbons and everything else that's in there. That's all. It's just telling you how efficiently it's burning. So yes, he's absolutely correct on that. So it's not going to tell you. It just tells you that, okay, you're putting a little too much fuel in there because it's not being able to burn that fuel efficiently. Now that also has to do with timing. So I always tell people to set your timing first. Make sure that that's actually somewhat close. Do some carburation, then retime it, and then go back to carburation. Kind of go back and forth until you find that happy medium. And then also to take a swing for the fences so you see what a bad timing feels like. Like, make a change. Make a 10-degree change, and you're like, whoa, that's crap. Oh no. Bicycle Guy 111. Shane, since you mentioned Weber's early, any chance you'll try side drafts or IDFs on your slant? Here's the thing. I did buy Plan Z for Mr. Tony, Uncle Tony's Garage. So that's going to get a lot of racing testing stuff on it, because IDF side drafts is something I couldn't drive on the street. Well, you probably could, but I got Plan Z, and that's going to be, we're going to try a lot of different things on that. Why not? I know it works on 4 barrels. If I can get some IDF Webers, man, why not? I think that would be awesome.
I want to see that. The Volkswagen guy in me wants to see that happen. I don't think I've ever seen that before on
Yeah.
a slant.
But I got to tell you that It would be one of those that I wouldn't want to buy. I would, if someone had one, would be willing for me to use it for like 6 months. That's the only way I would do it because IDFs have kind of gone up. I remember they used to be like $150. Not anymore. Three carburetors is going to set you back about what, $1,500 now?
Yeah, carburetors are crazy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Brian has a comment there. Dust Devil Brian.
Right here. Is this it?
Yes. So to tell you what that's all about, I had Steve Maggs on my channel here last year, and he saw a picture of Dust Devil's car and said it was cool. So we have forever memorialized it in this meme. Steve Vignante says it's cool.
That car looks like every 1970s car I saw in San Diego.
Doesn't it? It's I told him it's a real life Hot Wheels.
Absolutely.
It really is. And it now has a windshield, and I'm looking forward to seeing that car in September. So,
is that a driver? Is that something he can drive there?
I have no idea. You're gonna have to ask Brian. I've heard it run now, but it hasn't moved an inch in years. So we're all waiting, Brian.
Yeah.
Steve Vignante says it's cool. We all got to see it now.
Short-term plays. Here we go. Short-term plays a big role in efficiency. I think he's talking about the short-term runner on the intake or the cylinder head. I think is what he's talking about. Yes, it does. A lot of that stuff does. And Danny, Plan Z. Yes, Plan Z from Uncle Tony's Garage. That car has been officially retired from his operation on his channel. He's going to take the trans and engine out of it. He's got another car that he's going to put all that in to do his testing on. My goal with Plan Z is just to do all the Slant 6 stuff that I wanted to do, but in a racing application. And my goal with Plan Z, and I've said this before, and I'm going to make sure everybody hears this multiple times. 1, it's going to do drag week. 2, it's going to do drag week naturally aspirated with an average time of 13 seconds. Now, that can be 13.99. That's still 13 seconds, but it's got to do better than 13.99. So it's got to be in the 13s at a minimum average over the whole week. That's going to be my goal with it. And that I believe that's achievable. Whether it's done with an automatic or stick shift, it was a stick shift car. Tony did say he had that. I have some extra pedals here. That's for an A body, and then just get any type of 5-speed would be fine because we're not talking huge power here or torque. We're talking like 250 at that range. I think with a 411 gear and a short tire, he was running on a 26 tire. If I run like a 23, that should get me up to that 430 mark as far as the gear goes, and that'll help me leg that thing out.
That'll actually make a Dart wheel well look cavernous.
Yeah.
Right? Said one ever.
Yeah. There's a picture of mine at the No Name Nationals. If you look at some of the pictures at No Name Nationals, I had those on there when I was racing those guys with those short tires. If I didn't have those on there, if I had those 26 diameter slicks on there, and this is a drag radial that I got. It's a for a front wheel drive car. It's a 225/15 or something. I don't remember. It's the smallest 15-inch tire that they make. That's a drag radial. It's the tiniest one. So it's very small. It's very small. Okay, Jonathan Couchy. Man, we're getting down to it.
A trailer with those 488 gears, so I don't blame him.
Yeah, right there. There it is. Jonathan Couchy. Going to do drag week and finish. That means do drag week means you have to finish.
Do all of it.
And then, yes, do all of it. And then average 13.99 average or better. So, yes, that is the goal. So, my goal right now for my Slant Daily Garage is to get No Name Nationals, Cookie Monster, the Green Dart. The Lizard King is going to be getting A500 training. And then I'm not going to touch it for a while, and I'm just going to be playing with mileage to try to get, after the VRS, then I'm going to be trying to get mileage out of it, and it either go to fuel injection, multi-port, or I'm going to keep the carburetor on it. Then Plan Z, that's going to be my race car. That's going to be the next thing. So, wow. Here we go. We are, yes, Colleen, one last thing. Tech question, with 355 gears, what size tire would you get 70 miles an hour on the highway? You know what, Colleen? I'll text this to you. I don't have time to do the math for you right now, but it really comes down to your RPM, where you're willing to turn it, because that's everything on your engine. So
what I do is I take my tire diameter, right?
Yep.
I multiply it by pi, I get the circumference.
There you go.
There's 63,360 inches in a mile.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I figure out how many revolutions it's going to make in a mile, multiply that by the rear end gear, and that's going to be your mile per hour at 60.
Mm-hmm.
You can then divide that by 60 and multiply it by any other number to know what the RPM is at that speed.
Yep, exactly. I just didn't have time to do it all for her, but yeah.
I keep them in my head, so I don't always know I don't have like a formula I plug stuff into. It's the same thing with cubic inches. I have them in my head like that, but
yeah, mine you divide by the cubic inch, pi. I do all that stuff. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're at 9:00. Anything you got to plug?
One thing, yes, I do want to plug is
Sure.
I plan on going live here right after this with Technician Troy to celebrate 500 subscribers for him. He's going to be the 19th channel, hopefully, to cross the line. He's just a few away. And so I'll go live right after this for a few minutes with Technician Troy.
And Kim, I did subscribe to the channel Building the Slant. I don't have it up here anymore, so I apologize, but I did. I'll go and check out all his videos. He's got 63 people up there. So if you put it up there again, the name of it, I'll plug it again. I was kind of scrolling through it as we're talking, so I think it's awesome. And what I got coming up is the next video going to be dropping is going to be some Cookie Monster stuff for 281050, and then some more VRS tuning, and yeah, going from there. And like always, thanks for coming by, guys, and I hope we got everything. If we missed one and you want to get it done, slantdailygarage@yahoo.com. Once again, slantdailygarage@yahoo.com. And I will, Mr. Michael Schmidt, I will make sure to get out your t-shirt and your little goodie bags for being my very first super chat, because I think that's awesome. Oh, and Kim says it's Buff Del Campo. Yeah, go to Buff Del Campo. He's got he's got a little channel there. He's only got 63. Let's kind of get him over 100 if we can. That'd be awesome. So anyways, thanks again. You guys have a good night. I appreciate it. You guys take care.
Been fun. Thank you.
All righty. Peace. And we are